Good morning to everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the November edition of our First Friday Book Synopsis. For those of you that I did not get to meet, my name is Carl Crayer. I am the president of Creative Communication Network, and as many of you know, this is our 11th year of doing the First Friday Book Synopsis. I want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are here for the very first time, and always to our regulars who've supported this event and kept this going for now into our 11th year. I also welcome you. I'd like to begin today, if I could, if you would look at the packet that you received at registration. I'd like you to go to the very back page, and what I would like for you to look at here is an offer that I would like you to consider for the holidays, as opposed to giving your boss, co-workers, friends, family, or enemies things like a fruit cake that will get stale, or a chocolate basket that they don't need, or a fruit that they looks good but probably won't eat, or movie tickets that they will lose. I'd like you to consider a gift certificate to the First Friday Book Synopsis. Now, this looks pretty ugly because I copied it in obviously black and white. I love you all, but I cannot afford color copies for samples. So this is in full color, and I will put your name and the person you're giving it to, and it comes in a white envelope. And my point here is, why not give someone food for thought instead of food for calories? And I want to encourage you to think about that. You can buy these from us today. We'll take the information from you, obviously email or phone. I'm glad to do that as well. So consider that as a gift for the holidays. We do a lot of these every year, and I think they're great gifts. So people have to eat, but let's eat some food for thought as well. Secondly, if you were not here last month, or you are a first-time attendee, I do have a 2009 calendar for you on the CCN table, and it does have our picture on the inside. It will hang up, and it has all the dates for 2009 of the First Friday Book Synopsis pre-marked for you, so you can attend that. So if you did not get a calendar, be sure and pick one up there, and it is there for you. So those of you that use Outlook, I'm sorry, we're the old-fashioned paper version, but it's there for you. Just a very quick remarks about what we do here. For those of you who have not attended and you are a first-time attendee, we do give you a complete transfer of information of 2 best-selling business books. This has never been a critical review or an editorial about the books. It is truly an oral Cliff's Notes. We are giving you the information that the author gives in a 15-minute synopsis. And as I've said many, many months here, if you hear something that does not resonate with your values, philosophy, or you hear something that offends you, don't kill the messenger. We're just telling you what the author said. We didn't write these books, and we're just telling you what they said. The synopsis is truly informational. You may do with this what you wish. Put it in conversations, emails, meetings, and so forth. The pact, as I always say that I make with you, is I will never tell anyone you did not read the book. That is the pact we make, and you may use this in any way you wish. Each of the books has a presentation outline that you can follow as we deliver the presentations. It's also followed by a sheet of key quotes that will give you a flavor of the author's work, and I encourage you to read that on your own time to get a little bit about what the author is saying. If you turn to the first presentation outline, I'd like to begin with the John Kotter book, and this is a book called A Sense of Urgency. And many of you are familiar with the Kotter line of books. He published Leading Change, The Heart of Change. The most recent book that we did here at the First Friday Book Synopsis was another book about change, Our Iceberg is Melting. This is not a book about time management, even though it has a clock on the cover. And when I first was considering doing this book, I couldn't figure out why Kotter wrote a book on urgency, because it seemed out of line with the other things that he wrote. And then, as I started reading the book, he reminds you that in his 8-step change process, the number one step is create a sense of urgency. If there is not urgency in a change initiative, the change doesn't happen. So it is the very first step, and it's very important. If you look at the outline, there are a couple of key issues that low urgency and high complacency is the key factor in change of any magnitude. And what he says here is he reminds you that 70% of change initiatives fail. And he says the number one problem is that organizations have about creating a sense of urgency. And that's the first step, he says, in a series of actions needed to succeed in a changing world. Winners first make sure that a sufficient number of people feel a true sense of urgency to look for an organization's critical opportunities and hazards. So a lack of urgency is actually why, he argues, that many change initiatives fail. What you have is complacency, and he says that that comes from past success. Past success drives complacency, and then there's also, he talks about in the book, false urgency, and that is dysfunctional energized action. People are, in fact, doing things, and they're very active, they're just not the right things. They are unproductive things that they do. And quoting him, put simply, a strong sense of urgency is moving from an essential element in a big change program to an essential asset in general. I thought you might enjoy looking at a table that I reproduced for you out of the book that compares complacency, false urgency, and true urgency. And obviously you can look more at this at your own time, but I wanted to call attention to a couple of things for you in this table that I think really stand out. One is the roots, and if you look at that row, the roots of complacency, as I mentioned, is past success. The root of a false sense of urgency is failures, recent problems with short-term results, and long-standing incremental declines. But a true sense of urgency, the root is leadership, and that is throughout the organization as people begin to see what they need to create and how they begin to be involved. If you go down the table a bit, I love the row on what people feel. Complacency, obviously, is people feel content with the status quo. False sense of urgency, these people are anxious, angry, and frustrated. But a true sense of urgency gives you that powerful desire to move forward. And then you can also look at the behavior here. Complacent people basically do nothing. They do not change their activity. They have no difference in action plans. People with a false sense of urgency, again, are very active. Going to meetings, writing, putting PowerPoint presentations together, calling task forces together, all of which exhaust them and everybody else that's in the process. But people that have a true sense of urgency take action. Fast-moving, they're focused externally on things that affect the organization internally, and they provide activities and they put in time to do these things. So to summarize, I think what he's really saying here, complacency is the product of actual or perceived success. These people are content with the status quo. They cling to it often because they are afraid, perhaps irrationally afraid, of the personal consequences of change. False urgency, then, is the product of failures or some form of intense pressure that's put on a group. They feel anxious, angry, frustrated, and tired. Now, I love this section of the book where he talks about red flags and useful questions. I want to share a few red flags with you because I think these things are pretty funny. If you don't think they're funny, just go, that makes it funny. But this was a company that deals with technological change. They're going through that. Here's a couple of red flags, and these may hit home for you. One, members of a task force had difficulty coordinating calendars to set up their first meeting. 4 weeks after they were charged with their task, they met for the first time. Later, no decision was made at the first task force meeting except that it must have another meeting. People were asked to pull out their appointment books. Not everybody had one with them. After hemming, hawing, and negotiating, the members set a time in 4 weeks to meet again. 2 people didn't say so, but they knew they would have to miss the meeting because of prior commitments. Another red flag, at the second meeting, a sub-task force was created for communication of the new strategy. Discussing who should be on this committee took up most of the meeting. One person asked with a look of pure exasperation, but what exactly do we have to communicate? The task force ran out of time before they could answer the issue of this question. So those are red flags. Obviously, change is not moving forward. You have complacency and false urgency. And then here's some tough questions, and I'll read just a few of these to you. Are critical issues delegated to consultants or task forces with little involvement of key people? Do people have trouble scheduling meetings on important initiatives? Is candor lacking in confronting the bureaucracy and politics that are slowing down important initiatives? Do people spend long hours developing PowerPoint presentations on almost anything? Are failures in the past discussed not to learn, but to stop and stall new initiatives? Like we've done that before. It didn't work. Do people say we must act now, but then don't act? Do cynical jokes undermine important discussion? Obviously, if you have those kinds of things going on, change is not going to move forward.